The best-known lavender legend is missing the scene that made it famous. A laboratory explosion leaves a French chemist with infected wounds. Later retellings place a vat of lavender oil within reach, one desperate plunge, instant relief, and the birth of modern aromatherapy. Except the account attributed to René-Maurice Gattefossé never mentions the vat. It describes the explosion, the wounds, and lavender essence. The plunge and the instant miracle came later, but removing the miracle creates a bigger mystery. If one dramatic accident did not make lavender the scent of calm, what did? The answer begins inside a copper still. Flowering tops meet steam. Heat lifts their volatile compounds into vapor, and the vapor climbs through metal until it cools back into liquid. In the separator, most of that liquid settles as aromatic water. A much thinner layer floats above it, lavender essential oil. It's a small physical separation. But when that oil reaches a bottle, it carries a much bigger promise. Open the cap, and most of us already know what we're meant to feel. The room softens, the pulse slows, sleep comes closer. The still, though, doesn't make calm, it makes oil. And even that oil may not come from the plant you think it does. A purple hillside is not a species label. Lavandula angustifolia, true lavender, is one source of lavender oil. Lavandin, a hybrid of true lavender and spike lavender, is another, generally more productive and commonly sharper and more camphor-like in scent. Cultivar, growing site, harvest timing and distillation method all shift the result. So even true lavender isn't one fixed formula. Then there's the protected version, essential oil of lavender from Haute Provence, tied to a defined region, defined methods and true lavender flowering tops. An ordinary bottle marked lavender promises none of that. The label alone cannot prove species, origin, purity or composition. The label may say lavender, but it still may not tell you which lavender story the bottle contains. To find out what's really inside, you have to look smaller than the field. The scent is associated with microscopic glandular structures across the plant, not pooled anywhere, not waiting to be scooped out. Different parts of the flowering top yield differently, and the final character of the oil is already being shaped before the plant is cut. Then the still takes over. Steam moves through the harvested material and carries the volatile molecules with it. Heat, timing, and the way the plant was handled all influence what eventually gets recovered. What was once a scent tied to one hillside and one season becomes something that can be bottled, shipped, and repeated, far from the living plant. Hydrosol and essential oil emerge from the same batch, but they do not become the same product. Left to settle, their different densities pull them apart. A thin layer floating on the aromatic water below. That layer is drawn away and bottled, and that is the physical turning point in this story. A fragrance once tied to a hillside and a flowering season could now travel and be sold in a bottle. This is the shift that helped remake the mountains of Provence. Long before lavender fields became a postcard, the plant was gathered wild from the highlands and distilled locally. Demand from the perfumers of Grasse gave that seasonal harvest a larger market. Gathering fed local and mobile stills. In the early 20th century, cultivation began to expand. From roughly the 1920s onward, planted lavender increasingly joined the wild crop. That changed work as well as scenery. A fragrant plant scattered across the uplands became a crop that could be selected, planted, harvested, and processed for buyers beyond the mountains. The still connected flower, farmer, and perfume house. Each link made the aroma more available, while making yield, consistency, and origin more important. The land didn't just supply a scent. Demand for that scent helped reshape the land. As the market grew, true lavender and lavandin developed different commercial roles. Productive lavandin served the logic of scale. Fine lavender retained a narrower identity, especially where altitude, origin, and protected production became part of what buyers valued. Neither one faked the other. They were related plants doing different jobs, even while lavender on a label blurred the line for anyone not looking closely. By the time lavender oil entered Gattefossé's laboratory, it was already portable, commercial, and familiar. His attributed account later became part of how aromatherapy remembered its own beginnings. We have not directly examined the original periodical page, so the account must remain attributed. But correcting one legend does not give us permission to replace it with a more cinematic one. The larger distortion is easier to see. The legend asks one accident to explain a meaning that had been accumulating for generations. It turns a slow cultural process into a clean origin story built around one crisis and one memorable substance. Lavender's association with calm had quieter foundations. Long before the laboratory story, lavender already belonged to linen, household cleanliness, pleasant fragrance, and restorative practices. It was never the only scent associated with comfort or sleep, but it appeared often enough in domestic life for its meaning to accumulate. 20th century aromatherapy and the wellness culture that followed didn't have to invent those associations. It could keep placing the same scent in the same kinds of settings, baths, pillows, massage rooms, and bedtime rituals, until the rooms and the smell became difficult to separate. Smell can carry context. Encounter lavender during a calming ritual often enough, and the next encounter may arrive with an expectation already attached. None of that makes the feeling imaginary. It means the honest question was never simply, does lavender work? It is closer to, which lavender, prepared how, tested on whom, and compared with what? Studies of inhaled lavender have reported promising findings for anxiety in some settings. But those studies are not interchangeable. Preparations, doses, populations, methods, and outcomes differ. A standardized oral lavender product is not the same intervention as a diffuser, massage, bath, or arbitrary retail blend. Different route, different preparation, different evidence. Results do not transfer cleanly between them. Safety follows the same boundary. Natural does not mean risk-free. Concentration, preparation, and route still matter. Skin reactions are possible. Inhalation-related adverse effects are possible. A pleasant smell was never proof of universal benefit. So the calm in the bottle rests on two histories running side by side. One is cultural, linen, perfumery, aromatherapy, and repeated ritual. The other is scientific and still developing. Specific preparations tested under specific conditions, promising but not a blanket answer. And behind both sits a landscape far less peaceful than the marketing suggests. Official analysis of the French lavender and Lavandin sector through 2023 described excess supply and stocks, falling producer prices, international competition, weather, and pest pressure. That is not a live snapshot of every farm today, but it reveals how a global symbol of ease can come from a landscape under real economic and environmental strain. Back at the still, the oil keeps collecting above the water. Thin, bright, physically real. Everything around it, the calm, the memory, the meaning, was assembled later out of plants, machinery, trade, ritual, and evidence still being sorted one study at a time. If that changes what you smell the next time you open the bottle, save this story and subscribe for the next one. Until next time, notice what rises and what remains underneath.